Police Department.
Hey, Got a Burger Trinity Smoky Dispatch. How are you?
All right, how are you?
Hey, you might pass on to your third shift. We do have a active wildfire in the Chimney Tops area. They're aware of it, and they're going to be coming in the morning to do some more aggressive attack on it. But they are going to let it burn some tonight.
Said it's at the Chimney Tops, you said?
Yeah, it's a Chimney Top.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Whew, that's a heck of a climb. I'm building up a sweat just with the temps being in the mid-40s here. I shedded all my rain gear and the clouds opened up. A little drizzle when I started on the bottom, but now things are looking nice. And we're back here to the scene of the crime, at least as close to the scene of the crime as we can get. That peak right there is Chimney Tops. You used to be able to climb all the way up to the top of that, and you'd actually be on this ridge, and you'd have maybe about 8 feet of rock width. It was kind of steep. You'd climb on all fours, and it'll go down behind there a little bit and go back up again, and it's got just openness on both sides, and it actually is kind of exhilarating and scary at the same time, especially when the wind is whipping through there. But in November of 2016, two teenagers, a 13-year-old and 17-year-old, were playing around with matches, and they were kind of just flicking them off the top of the mountain. Shortly after they left, it started a fire. The fire grew to be about 1 or 2 acres. They kind of let it burn because it's so precarious to get up there and dangerous, and they let it sit there for a week. And a week later is tragically when it caused mayhem, destruction, death, and heartache for a lot of people, including us. And if you remember, we did part 1 of our cabin in Tennessee, and I went right up to the point of where it burnt down, and I'm going to pick up where we left off there.
911, where's your emergency? The fires are getting really close. Okay, ma'am, can you evacuate? We can't evacuate. We have no car. My mom's disabled, and the fires are coming right at us. What's your address? We've called 5 times already. We're probably not going to make it. I'm so scared. We're going to die in this. I need you to calm down. Okay. Oh, God. What's your name? The fires. My name is... The fires are so close. The cinders are blowing onto our house now. Okay, ma'am.
911, where's your emergency?
The elevator's on fire. We're burning.
Where are you, ma'am?
Please send help.
Where are you, ma'am?
Westgate Resort, Building 4000.
Building 4000? How many people are in the elevator?
The building's on fire.
How many people are in the elevator, ma'am?
Two.
2 people in the elevator.
So it's in this kitchen on November 29th, that morning, when we found out the actual fate of our cabin. We got a call from a neighbor who lives down there. He went to check on his cabin. It's right next door to ours. He immediately sent us some pictures and basically said it was totally gone, nothing left. Needless to say, we were devastated. We literally put in our blood, sweat, and now tears into this cabin. And it was really up in the air now what we were going to do. Take the insurance money and just sell the property. We weren't sure whether or not we were going to rebuild or not. We needed a little time to get our heads together. Certainly other folks down there had it much worse than we did. Some lost their permanent homes. This wasn't our permanent home. Some lost their lives. Some lost their businesses. So it was tragic to us, but it could have been much worse. And it was much worse for other people. So I sat right here in this spot, had my laptop open the next day, and I started giving refunds and canceling future rentals that was already scheduled for the remainder of the year and quite a few into the next year into 2017. And as I was canceling them, I was getting messages back from the people that were renting, of course, and they offered like their sympathies and condolences. But then I started getting messages from previous renters. I started getting text messages and instant messages and messages through Facebook and messages through our management site, VRBO. And they were all asking about our cabin, did it make it or not? And I gave them the bad news, and a lot of them were almost as devastated as we were. To them, it was like a second slice of home away from home. They were sending us pictures of, their time down there. I got a small video from a family that was reading The Night Before Christmas to their little ones by our Christmas tree the previous year before our cabin burned down. So it really struck us when all these people were reaching out to us, and it was really the determining factor that made us decide that we were going to rebuild. Now, 2,500 structures burning down, most of them cabins and homes, some of them businesses, and various other structures. To decide that we're going to rebuild, in my mind, was we were going to have to do it quickly before everybody else started getting their ducks in a row. Otherwise, there's going to be a shortage of builders, inspectors, materials. Everybody's going to try to be building at the same time. So I immediately was trying to get our insurance people on the phone. How soon would we be getting a check? I started lining up builders, even though I didn't have a plan, just trying to find builders. I reached out to log home companies, thinking that, well, maybe if I find a log home company that's a little bit distance away from that area, that they wouldn't have an issue with materials, and we could start rebuilding our cabin with a log home company. There really weren't a lot of builders down there at the time because there was a big construction boom in the 2000s, early 2000s, and then the place got overbuilt. And then there was the real estate bubble in 2008. I did find a gentleman. He seemed very nice. I talked to him for about 3 hours over there in the living room on my phone initially of what I wanted to do. We texted stuff back and forth. I sent him pictures back and forth, what the cabin used to look like, what we want the new one to look like. And he seemed nice. He seemed decent. He had a building company. And I'm going to tell you up front, he's a builder. And even though they talk a good game, they still have their quirks where they lie to you, they put you off. Things take longer than they say they will. Even though I think this person had good intentions to start, and I think he still had the good intentions through the build, I think he got in over his head. He probably was not used to building these cabins, which are literally on the sides of mountains. I think he was more of like a residential home builder and a luxury home builder at that. But he had told me that he felt that the area took a hard hit. He wanted to do his part to help rebuild it, and he was going to take on rebuilding our cabin. Well, we signed a contract with the builder in mid to late February. He thought he'd get things started in March, and then he felt that he could finish this cabin by June or July. I thought he was crazy, and I'm thinking, well, if he's saying June or July, I will give him till October. The builder and I mutually agreed that it would be less expensive to get the materials locally and to ditch the log home company, which I backed out of the contract and had to lose some money, but in the long run I still made up for it by saving some money. It's mid-March now. Nothing's happened on my property yet, but other properties are starting to get their lots cleared out. We start shopping around and looking for items that are on sale and that we could purchase ahead of time and then maybe bring them down periodically and store them in the basement once that's up. I start working on a mantle for our fireplace. I send him some plans on how I want the fireplace to look. And by late March, there is some movement and they start clearing out my lot. I set aside a bunch of vacation time and I made some trades at work so I could go down periodically and hopefully do some of the interior work myself. Stuff like polyurethane, maybe even putting up the tongue and groove on the inside, insulating kitchen cabinets, and various other items. It's now May and I've accumulated quite a few items for the cabin. I have my first vacation time set aside now, and we're going to head down there, my friend John and I, to try to do some work. This is our neighbor's cabin, which survived surprisingly, and they're letting us stay there. It's right next door to our lot. We get down there and there's virtually nothing that happened other than it being cleared out. There's no footers in there, there's no sidewalls, and we still have a portion of the items that I purchased that we brought down with us to store in a basement that's not there. Fortunately, some of the other folks in the HOA that we have helped out in the past helped us out that still had their cabin and let us use their basement to store stuff temporarily. It was a little precarious though. It almost looked like the end of the movie National Treasure going down these rickety steps. And it looked like this retaining wall was about to bust loose at any time. They really didn't have a lock on their door, so I installed one for them just to make sure that none of our items would be stolen and there'd be no issues when we came back to grab them. We spent about a week down there, and they actually said that they'll be working on it during the week that we're down there, and no one was there the whole week. The weather was decent, it had not rained at all. John and I cleared up some of the burnt out trees and underbrush, but there wasn't really a whole heck of a lot that we could do while we were there. This was the first time that I came down since early November when the cabin was still standing. So we did as much as we could around the area. We shopped around for hot tubs. I decided it would probably be best just to order a hot tub from Costco. Now the builder assured us on the last day that he would have his excavator's backhoe up there, and then he told us that on their way up, one of the truck drivers hit a pole, a power line came down and hit him in the arm and electrocuted him. So we went on a hike in the national park, and then we had to head back for home as my vacation was over and I had to go back to work. This picture is taken in the middle of July, and they're preparing to pour the footers. Middle of July was about when he thought he would be done with the cabin. Earlier in June he had thought that he would have the subfloor up, and I ordered a hot tub from Costco and had it delivered there. It was going to take 30 days, and he assured me that the subfloor would be up by then, and that did not happen either. So I had this hot tub that was delivered down there to a shipping depot, and it was waiting to be picked up with nowhere to go. After sitting there for close to a week, our excavator picked it up and stored it in his barn temporarily. Now I get this picture from the builder, and then I start looking at it more closely, and I ask him, well, where is the basement door going to go, and where is the basement floor going to go? The excavator had told me later that when I sent him that text, he was befuddled, and it appeared that he was not going to put a door in or a floor in the basement, and that was quite an oversight on his part. So after a stressful few days, the door was put in and the floor was put in. And then I started working on the layout for the kitchen once I had some dimensions from them. Now the builder had said that the county engineer wanted these things called helicals put into my existing masonry wall into the mountain side, which are basically large corkscrews that will drill into the side of the mountain. It's a bit of an undertaking. It uses some large metal framework, and it's supposed to keep that wall from not budging or moving away from the mountain for many, many years, I hope. So all in all, it took 6 of them. They didn't put the floor in because of the way they had to use their machinery to drill into the side of the mountain, and then they added the floor for the basement after that. Now this picture was taken July 31st, and we're coming down August one way or another. There's going to be a total eclipse that we're going to go view, and we want to store stuff in the basement that is still not covered or weather tight. August 2nd, and things are moving quicker, and you can see some progress. The only bad thing is the hot tub that I wanted to put on the front deck, so I didn't have to pay for a crane to put one out there, is not there, and they have already put up the framing. It is now August 14th, and we're going to be coming out in about a week, and I get a disturbing text from one of the cabin owners where we're storing stuff in our basement. Apparently that retaining wall let loose, and it looks none too safe to use their stairway to get our stuff out that we thought we could move into a weather-tight basement, hopefully if we have one. So we packed up the truck again, filled it up with stuff that we had purchased. I also borrowed some rope and rigging from some guys on the rope team from work, so I can get down to their basement and get our stuff out of there. It's August 20th, we made it down here again. The basement is, let's say, weather tight. There's no locking door on it, but that's okay with me. But we noticed the metal roof on, and it's the wrong color. We had picked out basically like a slate gray that had a tinge of green in it, and they put a green roof on. Needless to say, I was pretty much at my wit's end. I wasn't really going to argue about this anymore. I really wanted to get the cabin done. The longer it takes for this cabin to be built, the more expensive it is for us on the back end because we're not renting it, we're still making payments on it, and we just want to get it over with. So I mentioned one of the main reasons we were coming down for this trip was because of the total eclipse of the sun. And there's going to be one coming up in April 2024, and I cannot stress enough, if you've never seen one, an actual total eclipse and not a partial, to go and try to do whatever you can to see one because it is truly amazing. I'm going to just share a fraction of the pictures that I took, and they came out better than I thought they would, but they really do not do this whole event justice. So please, April of 2024, put it on your calendar. Look where the path of the eclipse is going to be and see if you can somehow get to it. Try to find a place that's not going to be cloudy either. We were able to move all our stuff out of that basement and into our basement. We kind of consolidated everything, unloaded our truck. We met with a couple of the contractors, an electrical contractor and a plumbing contractor. We marked out certain areas where we wanted things to be. We made drawings on the floor, we made drawings on the studs, where the fireplace is, how wide the fireplace is going to be, where a TV is going to hang on the wall, where we wanted the light fixtures for a dining room table. I thought we spelled it out pretty good and was pretty detailed about it, but when I come back in October, I'm going to probably blow a gasket. Before we leave this trip, I screwed a board down in the basement to block off critters from getting to our stuff down there. Head back home and we're starting to get ready again for our next trip. I'm putting a bed somewhat together. I built this mirror from scratch. We got the kitchen cabinets in. We're going to bring those down with us next trip. It is now September 18th. I've got another vacation in October where I set aside time to come down here. I'm going to bring the kitchen cabinets down. And John and I plan on staying here in the cabin, and hopefully they get a toilet running, some water, and maybe some electric. Needless to say, none of that happened. We ended up staying in the cabin. I had ordered some mattresses that we're going to use for the beds in the future that we could just sleep on the floor. But we would end up using the outside porta potty and using a camp bag for showers. This trip really looked like the Beverly Hillbillies going down the road. I had loaded up my trailer with all the kitchen cabinets. I had loaded up my pickup truck with a bunch of the appliances like the washer dryer, the range, microwave. When we arrived there, I was beside myself. I was ready to just turn around and go back. There was basically a big moat around the cabin, and there was just a plank where you would walk aboard the porch. In front of that was a huge pile of lumber that was blocking us from unloading, so everything had to be carried over this large pile of lumber. We had to balance it up this plank, and it was just a pain in the butt to unload everything and get it inside the cabin. We arrived on a Friday evening, and then we spent Saturday and Sunday basically working in the kitchen area, installing the cabinets and some of the appliances. They had only put the tongue and groove wood in exactly where we needed it, and the pictures he sent me were misleading because there was no tongue and groove throughout the rest of the cabin. When we slept at night, there were open windows. It got pretty chilly at night. Basically worked from sun up to sundown. I put the solar shower on the tonneau cover of my pickup truck, and even though the temps were kind of in the 50s and 60s in the daytime, the sun did warm it up enough that we could take that and put it into one of the showers and take a shower. It just so happened to be while we were down there that our spiral staircase was ready, and I volunteered to pick it up and actually assemble it and install it because I didn't want to hamper the 2 or 3 carpenters that were working on our place from slowing down. It was about a 45-minute drive to go pick this up. They gave us a few instructions before we left and gave us a number to call if we had some issues, and we definitely had some issues. One of the first things we needed to do was put down a portion of the flooring because the base is going to go on top of that. And then we started assembling the risers and the treads, and it wasn't going too bad. Basically going along as the instruction booklet said, and as we start getting higher, it looks like the opening left by the carpenters for the spiral staircase is going to be too small. But we kept going thinking maybe we could maneuver it inside of window openings and make it fit, but it turns out that the opening for the spiral staircase was too small by 5 inches width and 5 inches length. So we basically had to tear into the floor, the tongue and groove ceiling that was already finished, pull everything back. One of the windows got shattered trying to pry some of the boards loose to put a new header in, and it basically set us back a whole day just for that opening. Needless to say, we got the spiral staircase installed. The last day of this vacation trip, we pulled out some of the vanities we were storing in some of the other cabins, got those together. Everything is in our cabin now and prepared for the plumber to come and start hooking that stuff together. I'm back home and I get a call from my brother-in-law who says that they're going to be coming down to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area sometime in November, and they have a timeshare that has 3 bedrooms and they only need 1. And if I needed to come down and do some work on the cabin, would I want to use their timeshare? I called my buddy John, and the accommodations were much better than what we had originally in October, so we came back down again in November. We brought another truck load of stuff: lamps, linens, pillowcases, TVs, dressers, but we still have that plank that's leading into the cabin, and it's still a pain to get stuff in and out. One new thing that's here now is the hot tub was delivered from the excavator. Unfortunately, that had some issues too. The shrink wrap was destroyed on it, and I don't know when it happened, but it's filled up with water every time it rains. Not clean water either, mind you. It's starting to get cold at night, so I'm worried about stuff freezing in there. Now we're taking some scrap wood and some posts and trying to jerry-rig away, almost like moving the pyramids, to see if we can get this hot tub into the house. Before I ordered it, I tried to make sure that it would still fit through a 36-inch door if we weren't able to get it delivered on the porch like I wanted to. Now, believe it or not, I've skipped a lot of the headaches and heartaches to get this cabin up to this point. It's getting a little long in this video right now, so I'm going to kind of cut it right here and pick up where we left off next week. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you subscribe, hit that like button, and keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody.